I moved into the house at the beginning of October. It was cheap, big enough, close to work, too good to pass up. The landlord mentioned the basement was old and not used much, but said the heating system was down there, so I need to check it occasionally. I didn't think much of it at the time. The first 2 weeks went smoothly. But on a cold Wednesday night, the radiators upstairs stopped working. The temperature in my room dropped so fast I could see my breath when I exhaled. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and headed toward the basement door. The moment I opened it, a cold draft rolled past me. The smell hit next, like damp earth mixed with copper. The walls were lined with old wooden planks, warped from decades of moisture. The light switch at the top of the stairs only made the bulb flicker, barely illuminating anything. Still, I went down. The basement was bigger than I remembered, the kind of space that always feels 1 degree too dark, no matter how strong your flashlight is. Boxes were stacked in uneven towers, casting twisted shadows across the walls. The boiler sat in the back corner, old, bulky, and constantly ticking like it had a heartbeat. I reached it and knelt down. The metal was cold. Too cold. I adjusted one of the valves and twisted a knob, trying to find the issue. That's when I heard it. A faint scraping sound behind me. Slow, deliberate. Like someone dragging something heavy across the floor. I turned around fast, the flashlight jerking in my hand. Nothing. Just boxes, old shelves, and shadows. I forced myself to breathe normally and went back to the boiler. That's when something banged against the metal shelving unit behind me. Hard. My heart jumped into my throat. Again, I spun. Again, nothing. But one of the paint cans was out of place, barely, but enough to notice. I crouched slowly, shining my light under the shelf. And that's when the hand slid out. Pale. Thin. The fingers twitching like they were waking up. Nails cracked, skin stretched too tight around the knuckles. I staggered back so fast I slipped and hit the floor. My phone clattered away, the flashlight beam rolling across the concrete. The hand shot back under the shelf instantly. But now something else moved, fast and low, darting behind a pile of old boxes. The sound of skittering feet echoed across the concrete, followed by a wet inhale, like something tasting the air. I scrambled for my phone and pointed the light toward the stairs. The basement door was closed. I hadn't closed it. I sprinted across the room. As I reached the stairs, something grabbed my ankle, not a hand, but something colder, thinner, like brittle twigs wrapping around my skin. I kicked violently until it let go. I didn't look back. I threw myself against the basement door. It took 2 hits before it burst open. I slammed it shut, locked it, pushed a chair under the handle, then stood there shaking, listening. For a full minute, everything was silent. Then scraping. Right behind the door. Something dragged its fingers slowly across the wood. Then, it stopped. In the morning, the landlord came by. When I told him what I saw, he didn't laugh. He didn't call me crazy. He just sighed deeply. That basement shouldn't have been opened, he said. I told the last tenants to leave it sealed, but nobody listens. He padlocked the door and left. I moved out that same day. But sometimes, at night, when everything is quiet, I swear I feel that same cold grip on my ankle again. Like something hungry finally found me. My uncle's house always felt wrong, even when I was a kid. He kept the curtains closed, the rooms dim, and he always locked the basement door with 2 separate bolts. He warned everyone, don't go down there. So of course, years later after he passed away and the house became mine, the first thing I did was unlock it. The basement stairs were steeper than I remembered. The air grew colder as I descended, and by the time I reached the bottom, I could see my breath in faint clouds. There were 2 rooms down there, one open, filled with junk, and one locked shut with a rusted metal latch. The locked one was the room I'd always wondered about. Before touching the latch, I listened. At first, nothing. Then a faint scuffling inside. Not a mouse. Not a raccoon. A person. I froze. The scuffling stopped. Trying to convince myself it was just nerves, I forced the latch off with a crowbar. The metal resisted, bending and groaning like it didn't want to open. When the latch snapped, a wave of cold air rushed out of the crack, brushing against my face like a breath. Inside the room was a single wooden chair. Painted white at some point, but the paint peeled away in long strips. The legs were covered in deep scratches. The floor around it looked worn, gouged by something, like heavy chains dragged for years. Then I saw the chain, bolted to the floor. Thick. Industrial. Not for storage. For restraint. I whispered, "Jesus, Uncle, what the hell were you keeping here?" A faint noise answered. Behind me. A footstep. I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs. The door was closing. Slowly. As if pushed by something invisible. I grabbed it and held it open with both hands, but it felt like another set of hands was pushing back. My arms trembled with the effort. Then a low voice came from the darkness of the room. "Don't leave. I remember you." Cold ran through my entire body. I shoved the door open wide and stumbled backward until I nearly tripped over an old toolbox. The lights went out. Pitch black. Something moved. I could hear it dragging its feet, slow and deliberate, breathing like lungs filled with water. My phone flickered. The battery was draining rapidly, 10%, 6%, 3%. In that dying light, I saw it. A tall silhouette standing in the doorway of the storage room. Thin, too thin. Head lolling to one side. Its fingers hung down past its waist, almost touching the floor. It swayed slightly, as if struggling to stay upright. My phone light died. I didn't waste a second. I ran up the stairs so fast I scraped my shin on the last step. Something grabbed my shirt, yanking hard enough to choke me. The fabric tore as I lunged forward, slamming the basement door shut with my entire body weight. Something pounded on the other side. Not with fists, with the flat of its hand dragging slowly across the wood. Then silence. I nailed the door shut and called a locksmith. When I explained, he didn't look confused. He looked tired. "Your uncle told me," he said, "there was something in that storage room that used to follow him. Every time he tried to leave the house, it would bang on the door until he returned." "What was it?" I asked. He shook his head. He never said. Just kept paying me to reinforce the locks. I moved out that same day. The basement is still sealed. But sometimes when I drive past the house at night, one of the basement windows is fogged from the inside. And if I lower the window of my car, I swear I can hear fingers tapping on the glass. The storm that night was the worst one of the season. The power went out twice before finally cutting completely, plunging the house into darkness. My girlfriend handed me a cheap flashlight and said, "Please check the breaker. I hate this." I didn't want to go into the basement, but the storm was cold and the house felt even colder without power. I made my way downstairs. The basement was always strange. The walls looked older than the house, like the foundation belonged to a different century. Exposed beams crossed the ceiling, sagging from moisture. A puddle had formed near the water heater, reflecting the blinking light from my flashlight. As I approached the breaker box, thunder rattled the house so violently dust drifted from the ceiling. I opened the panel and scanned the switches. Before I could flip the first one, something knocked on the floor. Right beneath me. A slow, dull thud. I waited. Another one followed, closer, heavier. "Babe?" I called upstairs. "Did you hear that?" "No," she answered. "Hear what?" The floor beneath my feet vibrated gently, like someone was shifting around under the concrete slab. I knelt down and placed my hand on the cold floor. Tap. 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 Soft, rhythmic. Like knuckles. I backed away. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but curiosity chained me there. Then I heard it. A voice. Muffled. Strained. "Help, please." I stumbled backwards so fast I bumped into the wall. The voice was coming through the floor. Through solid concrete. How did you get down there?" I asked shakily. "Cold, alone, please." The voice sounded wrong. Desperate, but not weak enough for someone buried alive. More like someone pretending to be weak. "I'll call for help," I said. No. "You open. Let me out." My flashlight flickered aggressively, plunging the room into momentary darkness. When it came back on, a thin crack had formed across the floor. Barely noticeable, but new. Fresh. The voice whispered again, this time in a tone that no longer sounded trapped. "I hear you. I'm coming up." I dropped the flashlight in panic. It rolled across the floor, illuminating the crack spreading another inch, a faint scraping noise pushing upward from beneath. That was enough for me. I bolted up the stairs, nearly slipping. I slammed the basement door and locked it. My girlfriend ran over asking what happened, but all I could say was, "Don't go down there." That night, hours after the storm passed, when the house was silent and still, the knocking started again. This time from directly beneath our bedroom floor. Slow. Precise. Patterns like someone testing the wood. I pressed my ear to the floor once. "Big mistake." A voice whispered back. "I'm almost there."